You know, we usually think of anime as just pure entertainment, right? But what if I told you that a character's mind could actually be a blueprint for upgrading our own? Today, we're diving into one of fiction's greatest detectives, and trust me, his thinking process isn't just part of the story, it's an absolute masterclass in problem solving. So let me just ask you straight up. Can an anime character genuinely change the way you think? I know, it sounds a little out there, but stick with me because by the end of this, you might have a totally different answer. Of course, we're talking about the one and only L Lawliet from Death Note. This guy isn't just a detective. He is basically a living, breathing case study in just how far the human mind can be pushed. And the best part? There are some powerful, super practical lessons we can pull directly from his methods. Okay, let's kick things off with L's number one rule, the one that governs his entire world. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly hard to do in real life. Never, and I mean never, accept anything at face value. It's that last part of the quote that's the real game changer. Even yourself. See, Lyle never let his own ideas, or even his powerful intuition, get in the way of needing cold, hard evidence. He questioned his own theories just as hard as he questioned everyone else. I mean, think about it for a second. We get a message on our phone, we hear some gossip, and what do? We just believe it. L's whole approach teaches us to slam the brakes, to always be that person who asks why, and how do we know that for sure, and to refuse to jump to a conclusion until the facts are undeniable. And remember this moment? Even when he was almost positive that Light was Kira, he publicly said there was only a 5% chance. Now, why would he do that? It's because he was drawing a hard line between his gut feeling and what was actually proven. Until he had that concrete proof, it was just a theory. All right, on to lesson number 2. This one is all about completely ignoring what's considered normal and finding the methods that actually work for you, no matter how weird they might look to everybody else. You see, none of this was random. L's bizarre habits, the way he sat, the mountains of sugar he ate, walking around with no shoes on, these were all tools. They were his way of keeping his brain totally hyperactive and firing on all cylinders. He could not care less about what was normal, he only cared about what got results. In fact, get this, L himself claimed that sitting like a normal person would slash his deductive power by a massive 40%. It was never about looking strange. It was about optimizing his mind for peak performance. And the lesson for us is huge. Find what makes you sharp and productive, and stop worrying if it doesn't fit some standard mold. Now we come to what might be my personal favorite lesson, and honestly, maybe the hardest one to actually master, and that is emotional detachment. When the stakes are at their highest, L runs on nothing but pure, cold logic. Just think back to when the FBI agents were killed. A normal person would freak out, right? They'd be angry, they'd panic, but not L. He kept his cool and treated that horrific tragedy as a critical piece of data. He actually used it to narrow down Kira's location. He turned a devastating moment into a strategic advantage. So here's the key insight. L knew that anger, ego, and panic are the 3 great killers of smart thinking. They just cloud your judgment and force you into making terrible decisions. By keeping his emotions in check, L made himself almost impossible to outsmart or manipulate. And that leads us perfectly into lesson number 4. You know, we often think genius is about seeing the big picture, but Leslie shows us that more often, it's about noticing the tiny, microscopic details that everyone else just walks right past. This was just a brilliant move. With one single incredibly detailed trap, L confirmed 3 critical facts at once. First, he proved Kira was real. Second, he learned the killing power worked from a distance. And third, and most importantly, he pinpointed his location to the Kanto region. All of that from one tiny, clever detail. And he didn't stop there. He noticed another tiny pattern in the timing of the murders. They were almost all happening after school hours. This seemingly small detail led him to a gigantic conclusion. His number one suspect was probably a student. Success is always hiding in the details. Okay, and now we arrive at our final and I think most powerful lesson. This is all about understanding the massive, massive difference between just being reckless and taking smart, strategic, calculated risks. A lot of people get these two mixed up. A blind risk is just gambling. You're just hoping for the best. But a calculated risk, which was L's specialty, is a full-blown strategy. It's when you've weighed all the pros and cons, you've thought through the possible outcomes, and you've got backup plans for your backup plans. Revealing his real identity directly to Light seems completely insane on the surface, right? But it was the ultimate calculated risk. L figured, correctly, that if Light was Kira, he couldn't possibly kill him right then and there without exposing his own identity to the entire task force. The danger was unbelievable, but the logic behind it was absolutely rock solid. So, after breaking down these 5 huge principles, doubt everything, embrace your own methods, use logic over emotion, master the details, and take calculated risks, I'm going to leave you with this one question. Applying everything we just talked about, who do you really think was smarter, L or Light? The debate is officially all yours.